Good evening. I'm Stephanie Zaharik, filling in for Charlie Rose. Personal Shopper is a new film from writer-director Olivier Assayas. The film marks the second collaboration between Assayas and Kriste Stewart following 2014's Clouds of Sils Maria. Stewart became the first American actress to win a César Award, France's equivalent of the Oscar, for her work in that film. In Personal Shopper, she plays a woman determined to connect with her recently deceased twin brother from the afterlife. Here's a look at the trailer.
What are you doing in Paris?
I'll take it. This too.
It's 500 for the belt and 2,000 for each bag.
Great. I'm a personal shopper. Kira's very high profile. Hey, Kira. She can't do normal things, so I assist her.
You have nothing better to do besides dress Kira?
I'm waiting.
What are you waiting for?
My twin brother, Louis, died here. It's been 95 days. We made this oath. Whoever died first would send the other a sign.
From the afterlife.
Has that always been there? Louis, are you here? I had a sign.
Are you sure?
There was a presence.
Do you think Louis is here?
I don't know. Kira?
I'm just gonna drop these bags for you, okay?
Hey. Kira was murdered.
What were you doing at her place?
Why are you asking? I'm lost. I can't tell whether or not I'm going crazy. Louis, is it you? Or is it just me?
I am pleased to have Olivier Assayas and Kriste Stewart at this table for the first time. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Olivier, this is the second film that you've made together. Can you tell us what made you want to work with Kriste Stewart in the first place, and what made you decide to want to work with her again?
You know, I hardly knew Kriste when we made Clouds of Sils Maria. I just loved her work. I have always loved her work, but you know how much we would connect and how it would work between us was, you know, was a question mark for both of us. And I think the reason why I kept on working with her after Clouds of Sils Maria and hope to keep on working with her after Personal Shopper, it's because I think that, you know, what the way we connected on the set of Clouds of Sils Maria, what I saw her do, the nuances, I realized that, you know, that she was certainly one of the great actresses I have been, you know, privileged to work with, and I think we complement each other. I think we're very different, but somehow we kind of. I think that Kriste brings me a lot, and I try to give her as much as I can in return.
So your character plays a woman who's grieving, and she's trying to accept the loss of her brother. In portraying the character, did you draw on any personal experiences, or did you just use sympathetic imagination, which is a great actor's tool? You know, how personal was it for you?
I've had tastes of, you know, relatively speaking, sort of like crippling anxiety that wasn't really rooted in anything other than just grand questions that like are a little stymieing. And I think like in retrospect, all of those times in my life were kickstarted by some sort of loss, definitely insignificant compared to the loss of a twin brother, but I knew that feeling. I just, even feeling sick sometimes, if you have a really bad flu, like that, just anything that sort of reminds you of mortality and what there is in life to actually hold and grasp and know for certain, and that is actually very little. And so when you're reminded of that, it's kind of difficult to function in a normal kind of like flippant default setting, which is how we exist typically. I mean, that's the only way to get through life in any way that's, you know, productive. And so I knew that feeling, but I have the depths in which that debilitating feeling affects her, I've never come close. But I could, like you say, I mean, I could sympathize.
It seems to me, too, that this performance, this role, it is almost like it must have been written as a circle that wasn't quite closed. And I think your performance really closes the circle. Did you, can you talk a little bit about writing the role? And did you have...
Well, you know, it's pretty much the way I always write. I mean, to me, I write open screenplays as opposed to locked screenplays. I think there's something just so boring to making movies if everything is like finalized at the screenwriting level. But of course, it's scary, it's dangerous, it's and you have to do extra convincing when you try to sell that to your finances. But it's no, but I'm convinced that filmmaking happens on the set. I mean, you know, that the screenplay is just like a trampoline, or you know, it's something that you use it to project yourself into something that's much more complex, much more lively, and I think that in that sense, filmmaking is like a magnet. You know, it attracts life. So a film should constantly be open, like windows open, doors open, so everything, you know, you can channel everything into the same energy that will create the film, which ultimately, you know, it's pretty much about the screenplay, but the screenplay being more like a backbone, you know, and you gradually give flesh and blood to it.
You've been working for a long time. Even though you're very young, you know, you started working as a child, basically. And you've worked in a lot of different types of movies. Obviously, the Twilight movies made you famous. Obviously, this is a different way of working. How do you compare it to other types of movies that you've made? And at any point were you scared about things that Olivier was maybe asking you to do or looking for?
Even on a larger film that requires more finality in terms of what the result is going to end up being, like more predetermination, I always try and forget those things and sort of like allow other people to worry about them, because it's funny, like what he was saying about keeping doors open and windows open. It's really the only it's really the only way to do anything that doesn't just feel like an impression or an imitation of life. I don't want to imitate life. I really want to like interpret it and allow someone to capture it. So, and also about the windows and doors thing, it's totally what Personal Shopper is about too. Like if you think you know everything in terms of like, you know, the larger questions, then you're closing yourself off to so much that life can offer you. And then you really just live in the immediacy of like everyday practicality, which is, you know, to a certain extent boring and empty. So yeah, even on a big movie, there's a certain job that an actor has to tell a story and hit certain emotional marks. And to be honest with you, I don't do very well in that position. I don't thrive. I feel like, you know, even on a larger, like on a movie like Twilight, the moments that were written in the book or in the screenplay that everyone sort of like maybe were like deeply attached to, I always felt like I messed them up. And then the moments that were the moments that just happened to bubble up on set that maybe wasn't such a huge moment in the script or in the book, those were the things that surprised me were the things that were always like, oh man, I think we just got to it. And I think that that's actually servicing the story in a much better way than if I had cried at the right moment when he said the thing to me about the thing. You know, like, yeah, that's how I do like to work as well.
And Olivier, many of your movies, not just this one, I'm thinking of Boarding Gate and Demon Lover, you're very open to the fact that we rely on technology, we need technology, we live with technology, but you're also kind of wary of it and wary of its limitations. Can you talk a little bit about how that plays out?
You know, it's when I was making like a while ago a movie like Demon Lover, I think that technology, modern means of communication were not as much, you know, inscribed inside our culture. And at that point, maybe I had ideas about it. Now I have like zero idea about it. I just accept it as a fact. It's, you know, and there's no other way to do it. But the only thing is that because I'm pre-digital and digital at the same time, I have at least the perspective of time, and I'm aware in that sense how ultimately the way we communicate, the way we explore the internet, or the way, you know, our smartphones are hardwired in our brains, have changed the human experience. They have changed the human identity. So it's not so much that I'm interested in gadgets. The thing is that I'm interested in how they are transforming human beings, and it's really something that I realized when I was writing Personal Shopper. It's that I think that if you want to describe a modern character, you also have to deal with the way that human being does communicate or use social media or not social media or whatever, because those end up being defining element in the psychology. Maybe we should use another word now, but. Like it's like there's some kind of external psychology to individuals today through means of communication. But you know, I don't think it's acknowledged how deep it goes.
How would you approach the more mysterious element of the character that you're playing, this role, where you have the phone in your hand? You're obviously very, you know, texting all the time. You're very comfortable with it, but then at a certain point, you start receiving these messages on the phone that appear to be perhaps from your deceased brother, or from a person playing a prank, or a malevolent spirit. Mm-hmm. So how did you approach that?
I think that there is a concrete answer on who that person actually is that I'm texting, and I'm only aware of that as an actor approaching the story as a screenplay that I've read, and so I know how everything plays out. But I think if I were to wipe that from my, you know, memory, the person or spirit or entity or whatever that she's speaking to is this ever-evolving thing, and I think that speaks to like the definition of one's own reality. If you believe it, then it's true. And so I think that there are times where she's absolutely talking to herself. I think it's an internal dialogue. And then there are times when she, you know, assumes that it's, you know, another character within the movie, which it's hard to describe because, you know, I don't know if people have seen this while watching this interview, but I think it's weird because your phone gives you an ability to live quite presently all the time, but then at the same time, depending on how you use it, it does the opposite of that. So, yeah, playing with a phone as a co-star was kind of cool because at any moment, that's a shift. It's a shape-shifting co-star. And so it's almost like there were like multiple people that I was interacting with, and it's really self-reflective and like a little maddening, just as texting people can be. You know, you can speak to someone and think that you're having one conversation, and the other person can be having an entirely different experience. And that's in life too. That's like we could, you know, obviously like that could be happening between us right now verbally, but it's more so when you're not actually in front of someone, and so it allows you to sort of tailspin. Yeah, no, that's it. I think, yeah, it was strange, but like really, the one thing I was worried about was that it would just not be very engaging cinematically, that it might be boring or something. But those scenes had the most, for me, had absolutely the most tension. So
yeah, those scenes work. Those scenes really work. And that's interesting to me to hear that you know who's doing the texting, because you know, I've seen the movie, I love the movie, and I'm still talking to other people who have seen it who say, we don't think it's a person who's texting, we think it's a spirit. So you have the answer. Olivier, you came up with the idea. What do you...
Well, you know, it's you're witness to a car crash, and you ask 10 people who were there what happened. You will have 10 versions. Actually, reality is only one version because it's obvious. It's very easy to connect the dots. I think that human perception and the way you process film based on your own preconceptions in a certain way is very interesting because I think that, you know, I think it has to do with the fact that I never feel like I'm making movies for an audience. I'm making movies for individuals, for a lot of individuals, hopefully. But I know that every single person is going to absorb the film thing in a different way, and I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to resist that. You know, a lot of filmmaking is about resisting that. It's really about establishing things clearly and you know, just controlling your audience. I hate the notion of controlling my audience. I think I'm trying to make a movie that's that's certainly narrative, but also has some kind of poetic or dreamlike dimension. And I want the film to be open to interpretation. I want the audience to daydream about the film. So whatever they're imagining is valid. It's totally valid because that's how your relationship with any given work of art functions. You know, like when you're looking at a painting, you can stay 30 seconds, 5 minutes, an hour in front of the same painting. Your gaze can travel in strange, different ways inside the canvas. So ultimately, everybody will have a completely different analysis of what's going on in that canvas. And movies, it has to be acknowledged. The movies are very much like that. So again, I have easy answers for everything in the film. I'm not sure that they're that interesting. You know, it's really like when in Clouds of Sils Maria, the character of Valentine that Kriste plays, she disappears at some point, right? And you know, I had so many times the question, so why is she disappearing and so on and so forth. She disappears because it's much more interesting if she disappears. She could also get on a bus and go away, you know, and it's a quick shot. It's done. It's finished. Like, you know, she has her suitcase and, you know, and the bus drives off, and why not? But if she just disappears, she remains a question mark, and she echoes through all the ending of the film. So yeah, that's more or less how I function.
There's one moment in the film that I want to ask you about, and it happens late in the film. Your character Maureen has stayed overnight at a friend's house, and Maureen comes downstairs and she goes to the kitchen, and there's an electric tea kettle on the counter, and I noticed that Maureen just taps it with the side of her hand to see if it's hot before she pours the water.
I love that.
Well, and, you know, as a viewer, when I'm watching a performer and I notice something like that, my first thought is, does she know that she's doing it? So, did you know that or was it just automatic? How much is instinct and how much is craft?
It's pretty much all instinct. At that point, I knew that I walked downstairs thinking that I'm alone in the house, and I see that there's a kettle before I see that there's somebody sitting outside. And so I think that the whole thing was like, yes, I would like some tea, but it's like, oh, this is some... my thing was, she's always wondering like who's around and who's watching. Yeah. And yeah, so I think that was just like, how long has he been there? Has he been inside? You know what I mean? Like yeah, that's all. But so that to be honest with you, to be like deadly honest, I did think about that. But a lot of times, like I've had questions. Recently, somebody asked me if I was like how I came to the choice of not unwrapping my silverware before using the napkin on my face in a movie that I did with Kelly Reichardt, and I was like, what? I didn't think about it, and they're like, that was just a brilliant choice. You know, you just didn't have time in your life at that moment to unwrap, and it just says everything about your character. And that was my favorite part of the movie. I was like, Cool. I didn't think about it at all.
But you know, the thing is that we didn't even discuss this, but it's really interesting you would mention it because it really struck me when Kristen did it, you know, and said, wow, you know, I thought it was just so good. I mean, it was so real, and it's not something you can tell an actor to do. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't come to your mind, and I think it's stuff like that make the film and the character alive, and that Kristen constantly brings.
So you two obviously have this kind of great chemistry and, you know, great way of communicating. Are you going to work together again, do you think?
Yeah, I'm writing a feature for him.
Yes, that's the next step.
He's going to be my star.
Yeah, that's the next step.
Oh, okay. I like the sound of that.
No, but hopefully, I mean, I would do like, I mean, I would, not to, you know, not to put words in his mouth, but I don't think this is the end of it, but like, you know.
No.
Thank you so much for being here, Olivier, and thank you, Kristen. Personal Shopper opens in theaters Friday, March 10th. Thank you for joining us.